far beyond the reaches of the galactic core. In a quiet corner of space where star systems were few and far between, a small human colony clung to life on a planet so harsh it seemed almost forgotten. This world, known simply as Varkanine, was a place where survival was a daily battle. Its surface was rocky and barren, the air thin and dry, and storms of dust and acid clouds swept across the land with frightening frequency. Food was scarce, water even scarcer, and every inch of habitable land was hard-won. The colonists had settled there decades ago, driven by necessity and hope, but over time the isolation began to weigh heavily on them. Contact with the rest of human space was limited, and support from the Galactic Alliance came sporadically. Despite their hardships, the people of Varkanine refused to give up. They were determined to hold on to their small foothold in the universe. But now, a new and deadly threat had appeared on their horizon. Alien raiders, a vicious and unpredictable band of marauders, had started attacking remote outposts across the sector. These raiders were known for striking fast and hard, taking what they wanted and leaving nothing but destruction in their wake. The people of Varkanine had managed to avoid their attention for a time, but their luck had finally run out. Scouts had spotted raider ships heading toward the colony. The community's defenses were too weak to stand against a full assault. The colony's leaders, knowing that they could not hold out much longer, sent a distress call deep into space on urgent plea for help. The message was simple and direct. We are under attack. We need immediate support. The distress signal made its way through the network of Alliance communication relays, reaching the command centers of the Galactic Alliance. Their officials listened with concern, but also skepticism. Varkanine was an isolated colony, barely more than a mining and research outpost on a world that few cared about. The alien raiders were a growing problem, yes, but the Alliance's resources were stretched thin, and many believed the colony would not survive. Most expected that only a small team of reinforcements would be sent, some soldiers, a few ships, to evacuate survivors if needed. The idea of sending an entire fleet to defend this lonely outpost seemed excessive. After all, the colony was far away, and the Alliance had larger priorities closer to the core systems. Unknown to many, whispers began to spread among the Alliance ranks about a group of humans called the Deathworlders. These were settlers and soldiers born and raised on some of the harshest planets in human space worlds, where only the toughest survived. On these death worlds, conditions were brutal. Temperatures swung between blistering heat and freezing cold. Poisonous plants and deadly predators roamed the wilds, and natural disasters were common. Life there demanded grit, resourcefulness, and a will to fight against every odd. The Deathworlders were not just survivors. They were warriors tempered by their environment. Their names and stories were often spoken in hushed tones, half in admiration and half in fear. Too many aliens, and even some humans from gentler worlds, they were almost mythically like legends come to life, as the Alliance debated what to do. The leaders of Varkanine prepared for the worst. They strengthened their makeshift defenses, rationed what supplies they had, and gathered their people into safer areas. Families huddled together, eyes fixed on the dark sky where the raider ships would soon arrive. Fear was thick in the air, but there was also a stubborn determination not to surrender without a fight. Some of the colony's elders told stories of the Deathworlders, hoping that help might come from these mysterious warriors. If anyone can save us, it will be them, they said quietly. Yet no one knew for sure if the Deathworlders even knew Varkanine existed. The tension grew heavier. Each day, raiders raided nearby settlements, leaving only silence behind. Then, the signal from the colony changed, becoming more desperate. Communications were interrupted, sometimes crackling with strange interference, as if an unseen force was trying to block their cries for aid. The Alliance scrambled to respond, finally deciding to send a task force, not the small rescue party many had predicted, but a formidable fleet of human ships, led by those Deathworlders. The news surprised many. The Deathworlders were known to be fiercely independent and selective about their missions, often refusing calls for help unless they believed the cause was worthy. Their sudden decision to deploy a full fleet to a distant, struggling colony raised questions and curiosity throughout the Alliance. Meanwhile, In the cold shadows of space, the Deathworlder fleet approached Varkanine with quiet confidence. Their ships were unlike most others, heavily armored, built to withstand punishment, and equipped with advanced weapons designed for guerrilla tactics as much as full-scale battles. Their crews were tough, trained to endure anything from hostile planets to fierce space fights. The fleet commander, a seasoned veteran with a reputation for never backing down, studied the reports carefully. He knew the raiders underestimated humans who lived on death worlds. They thought humans were fragile, but they would soon learn how wrong they were. His voice was calm but firm when he addressed his officers. "We don't just survive where others die. We win where others lose hope. Varkanine will stand." Back on the colony, the people watched the sky anxiously. The horizon was filled with strange lights, first the distant flashes of the raider ships, then unexpectedly the gleaming shapes of the Deathworlder fleet. The colony had asked for help, but no one expected this. The arrival of a full fleet sent a wave of relief and disbelief through the settlement. For the first time in a long while, hope burned brightly. But the looming question remained, would this fleet be enough to turn the tide against a ruthless enemy who had grown bolder and hungrier? As the two forces prepared to collide above Varkanine's rocky surface, the stage was set for a battle that would decide not just the fate of the colony, but the reputation of humanity itself. The galaxy watched silently, waiting to see if the Deathworlders would live up to their fearsome name, or if the raiders would prove unstoppable. In this moment of quiet before the storm, one truth was clear. No one expected this. No one expected that humanity's toughest would answer the call with a strength and courage that would echo across the stars. The sky above Varkanine, once dark and quiet, suddenly filled with shimmering lights that grew brighter and larger with each passing moment. From the black depths of space, a massive fleet emerged, far beyond what anyone on the colony or in the Galactic Alliance had expected. This was no small rescue party of a few ships. This was a powerful armada, heavy with armored warships that gleamed cold and fierce under distant stars. Each vessel was bristling with weapons more advanced than those the raiders had ever faced: plasma cannons, missile launchers, and energy shields designed to absorb even the strongest blasts. The fleet moved with a precise discipline, the pilots and crew hardened by countless battles on some of the galaxy's most unforgiving frontiers. They were the Deathworlders, the legends made real. Their ships cut through space like sharpened blades, ready to defend the colony at any cost. Leading this formidable force was Commander Kayla Draven, a woman whose name inspired respect and fear in equal measure. Her eyes, sharp and steady, reflected the icy resolve forged through years of surviving and thriving on Deathworld's planets, where nature itself was a constant enemy. Kayla knew the meaning of hardship. Her own childhood was spent crawling through toxic wastelands, battling fierce creatures, and learning to make every breath count. To her, the colony on Varkanine was not just another outpost, but a place worth fighting for because every human life mattered. She held no illusions about the incoming raiders. They were ruthless, skilled in hit-and-run tactics, and hungry for conquest. But she also knew they were about to face something they had never seen before. Humans who had mastered the art of survival and war through pain and struggle. Her voice was calm, but carried the weight of command as she briefed her officers. These raiders think they are coming to finish an easy prize. They will find out the cost of underestimating Deathworlders. The alien raiders themselves had been watching the colony's signals, confident that their attacks had kept the humans on the defensive and that any help would be minimal. Their warships were sleek and fast, designed for hit-and-run strikes, not drawn-out battles. They had a reputation for being deadly in surprise raids, but less capable when forced to stand and fight a prepared enemy. When the Deathworlder fleet suddenly appeared on their sensors, a ripple of surprise swept through their ranks. The alien commanders quickly gathered, trying to understand the scale of the force now bearing down on Varkanine. For many, this was the first time they realized their intelligence on humanity was flawed. They had seen humans as fragile and scattered, easy to overwhelm. Now they faced a force that radiated discipline, power, and a cold willingness to fight to the last breath. The raiders scrambled to prepare their own ships for the coming conflict, trying to shift from raiding mode to full combat readiness, but uncertainty gnawed at their confidence. On the colony, the arrival of the fleet was a moment of shock and awe. Families who had spent weeks fearing the worst now stood in the open, eyes wide with hope. The once quiet skies were filled with the roar of engines and the distant hum of weapon systems powering up. Children who had never seen warships before stared in wonder, while veterans who had survived countless struggles among the rocks and dust felt a surge of pride. The presence of the Deathworlders meant more than just reinforcements, it meant survival. It meant that no matter how brutal the raiders were, they would have to face a humanity that refused to be pushed down. The colony's leaders moved swiftly to coordinate with the incoming fleet, sharing intelligence and preparing defenses. Every hand was put to work. Engineers fortified turrets, medics readied aid stations, and soldiers took positions, their eyes scanning the horizon for the first sign of the raider advance. As the fleets closed in, tension thickened like a storm, ready to break. Commander Kayla paced her flagship's command bridge, watching the tactical displays with careful eyes. She saw the raider formations moving into attack positions, their ships darting between asteroid debris fields and planetary rings in an attempt to flank the human fleet. The raiders underestimated how well the Deathworlders knew hostile environments, not just on land but in space as well. Kella's strategy was clear: use every advantage, from the harsh terrain of the planet below to the deadly precision of her fleet's gunners. She knew the raiders would expect a quick victory, but she intended to make sure it would be anything but. Her voice, steady and commanding, cut through the hum of the bridge consoles. Prepare to engage. Hold nothing back. We fight for every inch of this world. The aliens launched the first strike, sending waves of fighters swarming toward the human fleet. The battle was immediate and brutal. The Deathworlders responded with practiced efficiency, fighter pilots weaving through enemy fire, warships unleashing volleys of energy bolts that lit up the void like deadly fireworks. Each skirmish tested the limits of the fleet's coordination, but the humans fought with a ferocity born from years of hardship. Their ships sustained damage, but the shields held strong, and repairs were carried out even as the fight raged. Commander Kella's calm presence was a steady beacon to her crew, inspiring confidence even in moments of chaos. The raiders began to realize that the Deathworlders were not just warriors but masters of adaptation. They used the planet's magnetic storms and asteroid belts to mask their movements, striking from unexpected angles. Back on the surface, the colonists listened to the distant sounds of battle through their communication links. For many, this was the first time they had ever felt truly protected in their long struggle for survival. They watched the skies and the scanners, waiting for the outcome of each exchange. The fierce determination of the Deathworlders gave them hope, not just for their own lives, but for all humanity's place in the galaxy. These humans were different from any the aliens had faced before. They were born from worlds where death was the daily companion, and they carried that strength into every fight. It was clear that the raiders had made a grave mistake in thinking Varkanine was an easy target. As the battle lines formed and the first major clash unfolded, the galaxy held its breath. The arrival of the Deathworlder fleet had changed everything. What was meant to be a quick rescue had turned into a demonstration of humanity's will to survive and fight back. The raiders, once confident and cruel, now faced an enemy whose power and resolve were greater than they could have imagined. And on the command bridge of the flagship, Commander Kayla Draven prepared to lead her warriors into a battle that would prove once and for all that humanity was a force to be reckoned with, no matter the cost. The battle for Varkanine erupted, with sudden fierce intensity, shaking the very air and ground of the colony as the Deathworlders launched their counterattack. The raiders, who had expected an easy conquest, were caught completely off guard by the swift and relentless assault. The humans struck from multiple directions, using tactics honed over decades of survival on brutal planets where every fight was a matter of life or death. The Deathworlders moved like shadows among the rocks and canyons, blending guerrilla warfare skills with the deadly precision of advanced weaponry. They didn't just fight. They outsmarted and outmaneuvered the enemy. Missile volleys fired from hidden ground turrets found raider ships before they could respond, while swift squads of human soldiers slipped through rough terrain, attacking raider patrols and supply lines. The raiders had underestimated the colonies' defenders and the humans' ability to turn even the harshest conditions into an advantage. As the battle raged, the alien raiders' confidence began to crack. Their ships were hit harder than expected, and many of their pilots were unprepared for the tenacity and strategy of their human foes. The raiders tried to regroup, but their communication lines were under constant attack, creating confusion and disorder. Yet their morale dropped sharply as more ships were destroyed or forced to retreat. For the first time, the raiders realized that they were not facing a weak colony, but a force forged in adversity and battle. On the ground, the colonists watched in a mix of fear and awe as their protectors unleashed the full might of humanity's grit. They saw soldiers moving with fierce determination through ruined buildings and rocky outcrops, coordinating with the fleet above to cut off the raiders' advances. The colony's engineers worked alongside the Deathworlder technicians, repairing damaged defenses and reinforcing barricades, all while medics tended to the wounded in makeshift triage centers. Hope began to spread through the people like wildfire. The air was thick with the sounds of explosions, laser fire, and shouted commands. But it was also filled with a new sense of unity and courage. The humans were fighting not just for survival, but for something deeper, the right to exist, to protect their home and each other against overwhelming odds. Commander Kayla Draven moved among her troops, her presence a steadying force in the chaos. She communicated constantly, adapting plans as new information came in, exploiting weaknesses in the raiders' formation. Her leadership was unshakable, a symbol of human resilience in the face of danger. The raiders launched desperate counterattacks, attempting to break through the human lines and seize key positions. But every advance was met with fierce resistance. The Deathworlders used traps, ambushes, and the planet's natural features to their advantage. Raiders found themselves caught in narrow canyons where they could be targeted from above or forced into open plains with nowhere to hide. The humans' adaptability was the raiders' greatest challenge. As hours passed, the battle grew bloodier. The raiders lost more ships and soldiers, while the humans pushed steadily forward, reclaiming lost ground and securing vital supply points. The tide was turning. News of the fierce fighting spread quickly through the Alliance and beyond. Many, who had doubted the colony's chances, now watched with growing respect and disbelief. The Deathworlders were proving that even in the darkest situations, humanity could rise with unexpected strength. For the colony, this was a moment of transformation. They were no longer just survivors, they were fighters. Their home was becoming a symbol of hope and defiance in a galaxy that often forgot the struggles of the distant and forgotten. The battle for Varkanine was far from over, but its outcome was starting to seem certain. The raiders, shaken and battered, began to retreat, their plans for a quick conquest shattered by the raw power of human will. The humans held their ground, ready for whatever came next. As the smoke cleared and the echoes of war faded into the distance, the colony's inhabitants looked to the sky and saw the Deathworlder fleet standing watch. They knew this victory was just the beginning. Humanity had shown it would not bow to fear or weakness. Instead, it would fight and win, no matter the cost. The battle on Varkanine grew fiercer with each passing hour. But the Deathworlders refused to simply hold their ground. They adapted, using every aspect of the hostile environment to their advantage in ways the alien raiders had never imagined. The planet's jagged mountains, swirling acid storms, and dense patches of dangerous, yet strangely intelligent native creatures became tools of war under the skilled hands of the human fighters. While the raiders relied on their speed and firepower, the Deathworlders understood that raw force alone would not win this fight. Instead, they set traps among the rocky cliffs, luring enemy ships into narrow passes where powerful energy nets and missile batteries awaited. During violent storms that blinded sensors and disabled communications, small squads of Deathworlders moved swiftly across the land, striking raider supply convoys and command posts before disappearing into the dust. The native fauna, fierce and territorial, was even coaxed into the conflict. their natural instincts harnessed by the humans to disrupt raider patrols and force chaotic retreats. The aliens, who had once thought their technological superiority guaranteed victory, now found their strategies failing. Their supply lines were cut, their forces scattered, and their morale shaken as they realized. They were fighting not just humans, but the relentless spirit of Deathworld survivors who knew how to turn every danger into a weapon. The alliance among the raider factions began to crack under the pressure. Commanders argued over the best course of action, some urging retreat to regroup, while others insisted on continuing the assault despite mounting losses. This discord slowed their movements and made them vulnerable to coordinated Deathworlder strikes. Meanwhile, on the human side, Commander Kayla Draven stood before her troops one evening, the alien sun setting behind her like a fiery promise of victory. Her voice rang out clear and strong, carrying the weight of countless battles and the hope of every person fighting alongside her. "We are not born into comfort," she reminded them, "but into struggle. On our worlds, we learn early that survival means fighting with every breath, every step. We are tested by fire and storm, by poison and predator, and we rise stronger for it. Our strength is not just in weapons or armor, it is in our will. No matter how brutal the odds, we refuse to break. Today we fight not just for this colony, but for all who depend on us. Remember who we are. We are the Deathworlders. We do not yield. We do not surrender. We win." Her words ignited a fire in the hearts of every soldier and colonist who heard them. The following dawn brought with it a fierce, coordinated offensive. Deathworlder pilots soared through the skies with renewed confidence, their ships darting between raider vessels, striking with deadly accuracy. On the ground, infantry units moved like shadows, flanking enemy positions and cutting off retreat routes. The native terrain was no longer just a battlefield, it was an ally. Where the raiders had once moved swiftly and confidently, now they stumbled into ambushes, their forces fragmented and outmatched. Every step forward was hard-won, but with each victory, the humans' momentum grew. The raiders' heavy losses and growing fear became apparent as their once unified command fractured further. Some leaders abandoned their posts, others argued bitterly, and the will to fight began to fade. The turning point had arrived. It was clear to all who watched that the Deathworlders were no ordinary soldiers. They were survivors who had turned hardship into power. The alien raiders who had dreamed of quick conquest now faced defeat at every turn. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in blood-red hues, the Deathworlder fleet prepared for one final push and assault that would either crush the raiders' spirit or cost humanity dearly. In the quiet moments before battle, Commander Kayla looked over the colony and the soldiers gathered below, knowing that whatever came next, they had already proven their greatest strength, the refusal to back down, no matter the cost. The future of Varkanine, and perhaps much more, depended on the courage they would show in the hours ahead. The alien raiders, once bold and fierce, were now broken and scattered, their remaining forces in full retreat from the battered surface of Varkanine. The great battle that had raged with thunder and fire was over, and the dust was beginning to settle across the scarred landscape. The colony, once vulnerable and desperate, now stood firm and secure, protected by the unyielding spirit and strength of the Deathworlders. Word of the battle spread swiftly through the Galactic Alliance and beyond, reaching ears that had long underestimated humanity's true nature. No longer were humans seen as fragile or weak, confined to peaceful or backward roles in the vast expanse of space. The fierce defense of Varkanine revealed something deeper: resilience born from surviving the harshest worlds, willingness to fight and endure against impossible odds, and a courage that burned brighter than any star. Other species, many of whom had once doubted humanity or dismissed them as simple colonists, began to rethink their assumptions. The legends of the Deathworlders, once whispered as distant myths, were now undeniable facts. In alliance halls and on distant starships, representatives spoke of the human fleet that appeared from the void with power and precision, of soldiers who used the environment itself as a weapon, and of a commander whose leadership had inspired a desperate colony to triumph against a powerful enemy. Respect replaced skepticism, and caution replaced arrogance. For humanity, this was a turning point, not just in the defense of a single colony, but in their place within the galaxy. The victory at Varkanine was a message to all. Humans were fierce protectors of their own. Formidable warriors ready to stand against any threat. Within the colony itself, the mood shifted from relief to quiet pride. Survivors gathered among the repaired walls and rebuilt homes, sharing stories of courage and loss. The bonds formed in battle created a new sense of unity and purpose. The Deathworlders moved among them not as distant saviors, but as brothers and sisters in arms. Warriors who understood the true cost of survival and the value of every life. Commander Kayla Draven, standing once more on the command bridge of her flagship, looked out over the recovering colony and the stars beyond. Her voice, calm but resolute, carried a new promise to her fleet and the Alliance. We have shown what it means to fight for survival and to protect what is ours. This victory is not the end, but the beginning. There are many others out there, colonies like Varkanine, who will face threats and danger. The Deathworlders will be there. We will stand with them. We will rise as protectors, as warriors who never back down. Plans began to take shape for a new phase of humanity's role in the galaxy. The Deathworlder fleet, once a secret strength known only to a few, prepared to extend its reach, offering aid and defense to vulnerable worlds. Their legend was no longer confined to harsh death worlds, but was growing into a symbol of hope and resistance for all who face danger. The Alliance, now fully aware of the true power of these human warriors, sought to strengthen ties and build partnerships based on mutual respect and shared strength. Across the galaxy, the story of Varkanine became a beacon, inspiring others to stand firm and fight for their homes. For the Deathworlders, this was a moment of quiet satisfaction, but also renewed vigilance. They knew the galaxy was vast and full of threats, many of which were yet to come. But they also knew that humanity's greatest weapon was the very struggle, that had shaped them, the ability to endure, to adapt, and to rise stronger after every challenge. As the stars shone overhead and the colony began to heal, the Deathworlders prepared for their next mission, ready to face whatever darkness lay ahead. In this new era, humanity was no longer seen as a weak or scattered people. Instead, they were champions forged in the fires of survival, a rising force in the galaxy, proof that no matter how brutal the odds, those who refuse to give up can become legends.